The first time I heard her voice again, my heart didn't break. It went cold. The ballroom was glowing with soft lights and expensive laughter, the kind that hums under crystal chandeliers and makes everyone pretend they belong. I was holding a glass of champagne I didn't plan to finish when she leaned in from behind me and said, lightly, almost kindly, "Still single, Maddie? Poor you. Look at my husband. Rich and loyal." I turned slowly. Years of practice had taught my face how to stay calm even when my pulse jumped like it wanted to escape my chest. Arlene stood there in silk and diamonds, her smile polished to perfection. Evan was beside her, quieter than I remembered, his hands folded like he didn't know where to put them. "You might want to meet mine," I said evenly. For half a second, her smirk cracked, just enough for me to see it. Then she laughed, brushing it off, as if nothing had happened. As if 10 years of silence hadn't just screamed between us. And suddenly I wasn't in that ballroom anymore. I was 22 again, sharing a room barely bigger than a storage closet with Arlene. Two broke girls, one flickering lamp, instant coffee that tasted like regret. We worked double shifts at a cafe in a town that never noticed us, our shoes sticky with spilled syrup, our hands always smelling like milk and sugar. At night, we whispered about the future. About opening a place of our own. About becoming someone. When the pipes froze one winter and I came down with the flu, she walked 3 blocks at midnight to bring me soup from a 24-hour diner. I remember thinking, this is what real love looks like. The kind you never lose. We celebrated everything together.
Her first real marketing job.
My promotion to cafe manager. We finished each other's sentences, planned each other's futures. "You and me against the world," she used to say. "Always," I answered. And I meant it. When I met Evan, she was there too. I met him at a community fundraiser the cafe sponsored, string lights, cheap wine, small-town hope. He wasn't flashy. He was steady. A banker with patient eyes who talked about building something from nothing. "You have vision, Maddie," he told me once, and I laughed because no one had ever said that before. Arlene met him the following week. She teased me about the way he looked at me, helped him pick out a ring, whispered that he wanted the proposal to be perfect. When he got down on one knee by the lake, she was the first person I called. She screamed into the phone, crying,
"He's the one."
"You did it." That night, she showed up with champagne and 3 glasses. We toasted until the bubbles went flat, laughing about how life had finally gotten it right. I remember her wiping her tears and saying, "You deserve this." I believed her. The weeks that followed blurred into wedding plans and ink-stained fingers. Flower samples. Deposit slips. Envelopes addressed to people who would disappear from my life forever. Arlene was always there, fixing my hair, checking menus, texting Evan like she was my second shadow. I thought that was friendship. I didn't see betrayal forming in the thick air between us. The night everything shattered, rain hammered the windows while I waited for Evan to come home. Dinner sat untouched. Invitations half addressed. When the door finally opened, his silence arrived before he did. "We need to talk," he said. My stomach dropped. I already knew. "It's Arlene," he whispered, unable to look at me. "I think I'm in love with her." The world went quiet, like someone had cut the sound from my life. "My maid of honor?" I asked softly. He nodded. The sound that escaped me wasn't a cry. It was a laugh, sharp enough to hurt. I took off the ring she had helped him choose and placed it in his hand. "Get your things and go." When the door closed behind him, I slid to the floor among wedding invitations that no longer meant anything, staring at a future printed in ink that had already vanished. That was the night I learned how silence can taste like betrayal. And standing in that ballroom now, years later, watching Arlene smile like nothing had happened, I realized something else. This story wasn't finished yet. After that night, silence became my only companion. The first morning without Evan, the apartment felt scraped clean of sound, like someone had hollowed it out and left the echo behind. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited for the grief to scream. It didn't. It just settled. Heavy, dull, suffocating. I packed everything that smelled like them. The wine glasses Arlene bought us for celebrations. The framed photo from that cafe fundraiser. Even the mugs she'd given me with stupid quotes about friendship. I didn't cry while I did it. I moved with the numb focus of someone cleaning up after a fire. A week later, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment above an auto shop on the edge of town. The walls vibrated when engines started. It wasn't quiet, but it was honest. No laughter. No memories pretending to be kind. When people asked how I was doing, I said, "I'm fine," and poured the lie into a paper cup. Work became the only noise I could stand. I took every shift the cafe offered, opening before sunrise, closing long after dark. I scrubbed counters until my hands cracked. I stopped wearing the ring and started watching the roasting machine instead. The heat, the timing, the way raw beans changed under pressure. One night, long after closing, the owner caught me adjusting the roaster, my sleeves rolled up, my hair tied back like I was bracing for impact. "You've got a touch for this," he said. For the first time in months, something in my chest lifted. Just a little. By spring, I quit my job and rented a tiny space behind a dentist's office that smelled like antiseptic and possibility. I painted the walls the color of espresso and named it North Row Roastery. My first roaster was secondhand and coughed when it started, but I treated it like it was worth a fortune. When the first bag sold, I whispered to myself, "This is how you rebuild, with burned fingers and bitter grounds." That summer, Lily walked in asking for part-time work. She was young, awkward, hopeful in a way that made me uncomfortable. "This place smells like a fresh start," she said. I laughed. If bitterness had a scent, it'd be over-roasted beans. She stayed anyway. Together, we learned how to package, price, and pretend we knew what we were doing. I stopped counting the years since the betrayal and started counting sales instead. At night, we sat on stools after closing, drinking coffee gone cold. "Do you ever think about them?" she asked once. I shrugged. "Only when the silence gets too loud." It wasn't true, but it was easier. Days blurred into rhythm, grind, steam, repeat. Dawn light spilled across stainless steel like forgiveness I wasn't ready to accept. A local blogger wrote about a woman who turned heartbreak into a business. The next week, there was a line out the door. With every new customer, I built another layer of armor. By year 5, North Row had 3 locations and a 4th underway. People called me self-made, as if that erased what came before. Interviews followed. Photos. Titles. Applause that never quite landed. One night, Lily wiped down the counter and said, "You're building an empire. So, why do you still look like you're waiting for something?" I laughed it off. But she wasn't wrong. That was when Daniel entered my life. Quiet. Observant. An engineer who came in every morning with his laptop and too many questions about roasting curves. We talked business first, then everything else. When he asked, "Do you ever forgive them?" I answered honestly,
No.
I just stopped needing to. When he proposed months later, it wasn't fireworks, just a steady promise over takeout boxes and laughter. We married quietly at City Hall. No audience. Just peace. For a while, I thought that was the ending. Then the envelope arrived. Thick paper. Gold lettering. An invitation to a beverage innovation summit at a luxury lakeside resort. At the bottom of the page, a familiar name stared back at me. Pierce and Miller Beverage Group. Keynote sponsors. My stomach tightened. Daniel saw my face and said gently, "You should go." I nodded, tasting an old bitterness I thought I'd already burned away. Some stories don't end when you survive them. Sometimes they wait. The resort looked like money pretending to be nature. Glass walls pressed up against the lake, reflecting snow, lights, and ambition in equal measure. Everything shimmered, polished floors, tailored suits, smiles sharpened by competition. I arrived 2 days after the opening reception, my badge heavy against my chest, my past heavier. Daniel squeezed my hand as we stepped inside. "You okay?" "I am," I said. It sounded almost true. Then I heard her.
Bright.
Performative. Too loud for the room, just like always.
Maddie?
"Oh my God. Is that really you?" I turned slowly, and there she was, Arlene. Perfect hair. Perfect posture. A diamond that caught the light every time she moved her hand. Evan stood beside her, thinner somehow, his smile tight, his eyes already searching for an exit. "It's been ages," she said, scanning me from head to toe, my suit, my badge, my company name. "You look successful." "So do you," I replied. Her laugh rang brittle. "Life's been good to us. Evan's managing corporate accounts now, and I'm running campaigns nationwide." I nodded and let her talk. She always mistook silence for admiration. The next day at lunch, she found me again. This time her voice dipped into something sweeter, sharper. "I read about your coffee line," she said, touching her ring. "So inspiring. Though I can't imagine having time for all that and a family." I met her eyes. "You imagine, right?" She leaned closer. "Still single?"
Poor you.
All that success and no one to share it with. The words didn't sting. They slid off me like steam. "You might want to meet mine," I said calmly. Her smirk froze. I stood and walked toward the lobby, leaving panic whispering behind me. Minutes later, Daniel arrived, quiet confidence in a room that worshipped noise. Heads turned. People recognized him instantly. When he kissed my temple, Arlene stared like she'd seen a ghost. "That's your husband?" she asked. Daniel smiled and offered Evan his hand. "Nice to meet Maddie's old friends." Evan's handshake was limp. Arlene's smile wavered. "She's the impressive one," Daniel said, his arm warm around my waist. I just followed her lead. Something inside me finally settled. That night, across the ballroom, I saw them standing apart, the space between them louder than any argument. I lifted my glass in a quiet toast. Arlene looked away first. As we left, Daniel whispered, "You didn't need revenge." "No," I said, watching the lake mirror the lights. "I just needed proof I'd outgrown it. And for the first time in years, I believed it." But closure is never as clean as we want it to be. Because as we returned to our suite, my phone vibrated with a notification, a private message request. From Arlene. "We need to talk." And just like that, the past knocked again. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. "We need to talk." For years, I had imagined this moment, what I would say, how I would finally win. But standing there by the window, the lake breathing quietly below, I felt something unexpected. Tired. Daniel noticed the change in my face. "You don't owe her anything," he said gently. "I know," I replied. And for the first time, that wasn't a defense. It was a fact. Still, the next morning, I agreed to meet Arlene in the hotel cafe. Neutral ground. Daylight. No drama, I told myself. She arrived early. No Evan this time. Up close, the cracks were harder to ignore. The confidence felt rehearsed. Her smile strained, like something she had practiced in a mirror too many times. "You look happy," she said, wrapping her hands around her cup. "I am," I answered. She nodded, eyes flickering. I wanted to explain. "Back then. What happened? I never meant to hurt you." I watched the steam rise between us, remembering another cafe, another lifetime. "You didn't just hurt me," I said quietly. "You chose yourself over everything we were." Her shoulders dropped. "I thought he loved me." "And maybe he did," I said. "But love that needs betrayal to exist isn't love. It's hunger." She swallowed. "Evan and I, things aren't perfect." I almost laughed, not cruelly, just honestly. They were never going to be. Silence stretched. She looked at me then, really looked. "You built something incredible," she said. "I used to think you needed me." I smiled, soft but steady. "I needed myself." When we stood to leave, she hesitated. "Can you forgive me?" I considered it. Not for her, for me. "I don't forgive what you did," I said. "But I forgive myself for surviving it." Her eyes filled, but I didn't stay to watch. Outside, the air felt lighter. Daniel was waiting, coffee in hand. "All done?" he asked. I nodded. Completely. On the drive home, mountains fading in the distance, I realized something simple and true. Success had been my armor, but peace was my victory. Back at the roastery weeks later, I unlocked the door before sunrise. The smell of beans filled the space I'd built from ashes. Lily laughed behind the counter. Customers lined up. Life moved forward. Somewhere out there, Arlene and Evan would keep living with what they chose. And me? I poured a cup, tasted it, and smiled.
Strong. Warm. Mine.
That's how you know the story is over.